Playmakers, the daily sports bulletin from the bridge that brings you the big news and the top plays from the world of Indian sports.
Hello and welcome to the Playmakers, our everyday live sports bulletin. My name's Rahul Karkal. In the Playmakers today, we've got the Indian Super League's 1000th match, and Pankaj Advani is a world champion yet again. We begin with news from Indian football, where the ISL has hit the 1000 match milestone when Chennai and Mumbai City FC met on Saturday night. Founded in October 2013, the ISL ushered in a new era at the top tier of Indian football. Since then, the league has grown in size and viewership and slowly but surely has captured the imagination of football fans across the country. Joining me now on the program to talk about this milestone is Raj Athwal, the president of Odisha FC. Raj, thank you very much for joining the program tonight.
It's a pleasure, and thank you for inviting me.
Raj, the ISL has now been around for quite some time, but the 1000 match milestone is a heck of a milestone, isn't it? How significant, according to you, is this milestone?
Yeah, as you said, it's a huge milestone. It's significant development, and I'd like to also congratulate the stakeholders, the owners, the players, and the fans for making the league. But the development itself, you can see from how the ISL has moved forward with the players, the professionalism, and across the board. So and it's evolving all the time. And so from my experiences of India, it's only becoming stronger and stronger. So it's good.
Yes, and you've spent a lot of time over in the UK. You've been involved with football there across various developmental levels. According to you, how has the ISL contributed to the development of Indian football?
Yeah, it's difficult to compare. I'm British football. I've been working in British football now for over 26 years, and the last 4 years in India. So you can't really compare the two. But what I will say is that you have to look at the Indian Super League holistically. And in my time, I've seen the players, especially the Indian players, improve technically. The game itself has moved on, and it's an enjoyable spectacle. But when I say you have to look at it holistically, what I've also noticed is from a coaching perspective, the standards have certainly improved. The dietitians, you have certainly a higher standard of strength and conditioning coaches, and across the board. But I've also noticed the inception of psychologists, which is the norm in the UK. I'm sure in Europe, but certainly in the UK, in my experience. And we appointed our first psychologist last season, and for the men's and the women's team. And I'm aware, I wouldn't know who, obviously because of confidential reasons, but I am aware that several players have contacted him, and it's certainly helpful. And so the game has improved overall across all sectors.
And you did touch upon the point about coaching standards and how that has, a gap, if I could possibly address that aspect. How have you seen that evolve since the time that you've been involved with Indian football?
I think the quality of coaches that are now coming through to India is quite significant. It's of a higher standard. With respect, I think when the Indian Super League first started, there were a high standard of coaches. Then I think it went through a period where perhaps the coaching staff were perhaps from top clubs, but the academies, etc. And now it's evolving again, where the coaches have actually worked in with the first team setup as opposed to academies. And I think that's important, because as much as they can have the big clubs on their CV to say that they've worked with youth players, if you're really good as a country, if we're really going to progress and move forward, then it's important that we invest in coaches that actually have that experience of first team coaching with players, first team players as opposed to perhaps the second string. And for me, that's not only important, but it's important for the Indian Super League to move forward as well. So that I've certainly noticed over the last 2 seasons.
Yes, and the ISL, needless to say, has grown over a period of time, and you've seen it evolve from the sidelines as well and up front from close quarters, right? So, what are some of the factors that you've seen that have contributed to the growth of the ISL over the years?
I can only talk about my experiences. I do believe, as I said, that there's the technique of the Indian players has certainly improved over the last 3-4 years. And in fairness to them, perhaps there was a period of stagnation, and it happens. There's cycles in football, but what I've seen in terms of improvement on and off the pitch, as I said earlier, there's across the board now. It's a lot more professional. There's an investment going on from the owners, and the standard of personnel working in the game in football is certainly increased, and that's important. And I also believe it's important that from a perspective of people from India who have experience in their own fields. But an area that I certainly wouldn't say struggled with, but witnessed was that when they were working in football, translating that business into sports management, sports business, was a struggle at the beginning. But as each season goes on and they're learning and they're becoming more accustomed to how the football industry works, it's like no other industry. It really is different. And so I think we'll see over the next 5 to 10 years, again, another cycle that will only improve the Indian Super League on and off the pitch.
Right. And one aspect is, of course, trying to get the standards to improve. The other aspect involves grassroots development as well, right? And we've seen various, teams, execute and undertake various programs. Would you like to share with our viewers some of the grassroots development programs and initiatives that you've been running over at Odisha FC?
Yeah, Adisha, in fairness, we have a long way to go. We have started, but just to give you, and you'll know this better than me, but with Odisha FC, it's only 4 years old as a club. We're in our 5th season. And in the first season, it was a transitional period. Next 2 years was COVID. So we've literally just landed in Bhubaneswar over the last 2 seasons. So we're slowly evolving and progressing our youth systems. But there are some clubs in India that we're also in contact with that have excellent youth development. But if I can touch on youth development in general, I do, and I've said this before publicly as well, that I do believe there's 2 areas, there's a gap in India, which is why there's a dearth of good quality players in the Indian Super League. And we're probably recruiting from the same pool, is because if you look at the youth setup and I'd say from 7 to 12, 13, it's lacking. And if there is a setup, I don't believe there's a good coaching setup. They should be fun, and perhaps we could learn from other countries, perhaps in Europe or other parts of Asia. And that's significant for me from 6, 7 years of age up to 13. And then from 13 to 17, 18, there's another cycle that perhaps we miss out on in India. So if you look at the 17, 18-year-olds in India, they do fantastic in their youth leagues when they play internationally. And then there's a gap. And that gap is significant because there's no reserve teams. There's not a competitive reserve set up. And you have to have that. So even when first team players are coming back from injury, there should be a reserve team where they can start playing and getting their fitness back to normality, as opposed to just turning up on a match day for the first team and playing 15, 20 minutes and hoping that they can compete in a very strong league. So I feel there's a gap there. There's 2 gaps, and really we need to really close that gap particularly. But going on to the players, I feel there is a dearth of good quality players coming through, and we're just really recruiting from that angle, and that's difficult. And I think until there's a conveyor belt, a proper conveyor belt, that's one area that I would certainly advocate that is looked at from all clubs, including ours.
Right. And staying with the topic of players now, one of the ways of improving the standard of a league is to improve not just domestic talent, but also ramp up, external recruitment, or in other words, overseas players. Now, you work extensively in the UK as well. How does the rest of the world, perceive the ISL?
I've done a lot of work personally in the UK and with the media, outside media, like with Sky News, BBC, Guardian, and a number of other publications to promote the Indian Super League. And I do know now there's a number of certainly in the UK fans that do watch the Indian Super League. It's seen as quick. There's goals, and it's exciting. The Indian Super League is actually exciting to watch. But I do feel that we have to also be fair, that it's only 14 years old, and the professionalism from the league itself and everyone working in it. I genuinely want to say that I have a lot of time and respect for these people, because it's very easy to criticize and say we could be better here and there. Every league can be. We ourselves as people can certainly improve. But it's firstly, it's looked upon it in a good way in the Indian Super League. It's seen as very professional, but there's always room for improvement. And so I do believe in the next 5 to 10 years, it'll only improve again, and the fans will certainly increase, not just in the UK, but across the world. But that's also down to broadcasting as well. And I do believe there's over 200 countries that can watch the ISL. So slowly it will start to develop.
Yes, and then talking about the development as well, when you did touch upon briefly about the next decade, as it were. Now, if you were to look ahead into the crystal ball, as it were, and if you had a couple of wish lists on your plate as far as development is concerned over the next decade for the ISL, what would that be?
The first and foremost would be a robust youth system. It has to be. Without that, and I know we all talk about it, and I've been listening to it for the last 4 or 5 years since I've been in India. But every club should be mandated to have a robust youth system. I also believe that, and this will probably answer the question, that we're going through an equilibrium cycle where owners and stakeholders are a little bit more prudent now, and perhaps the spending on or paying a lot of money for players and is perhaps coming to an end, and they've realised now that if you're recruiting from a small pool of players, then market forces will dictate what you pay. So that will hopefully eliminate that. Secondly, I do feel that there needs to be more hunger and determination from the players domestically, and consistency, because they'll have a year, 1 season or 2 seasons, good season, then they seem to go through a dip, and I'm not sure why that reason is. I can't really answer that, but whatever it is, we need to get to the bottom of that. And I do feel that, Rahul, I've probably not answered that very well, but I do see some players do really well 1 season, and then the next season they dip, and we need to get to the bottom of that. I don't know why, and I know players can be off form, but it seems to happen on a regular basis, and I'm not sure if it's a case of, and I need to be careful here, whether once they start earning a good salary, whether suddenly the motivation leaves, where perhaps in Europe it's not about the money. Money is a byproduct. It's about being the best you can year after year, and what better than Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo, the multi-millionaires, yet their competition is so high. I do feel it's probably the opposite in India, but could also be due to reasons where once they're earning a good salary, they can set up their families, their extended families, and there's a lot more to think about, and that might be their purpose and objective in life. So I may not be the right person to answer it, but it's an observation from my side, perhaps comparing it to British English football and the Premier League from what I've seen. So I don't know how we answer that really, but that's how I feel. And if we can change that motivation, I, I know for a fact that India as a nation can be a force in football, and I'm saying that genuinely. I'm not saying it because I'm on the show and it's the right thing to say. I genuinely believe it. I've been here long enough to see it. Some of the pace of the players and the discipline. The Indian players, they will do anything for you. They'll go through brick walls for you, and that's a brilliant quality to have. And if we can just interchange that with technique and work with the players on technique, there's absolutely no reason why we can't be a force in football in years to come. And I genuinely believe that.
Yes, so it's fantastic to listen to your perspective, and it's also terrific to hear that the ISL is seen in good light overseas. You did touch upon the grassroots development as an absolute necessity, uh, but it was also heartwarming to hear that the players are absolutely, committed. The quality does exist. It's just that there's a coming together of several factors that is needed, which really will catapult Indian football over the past decade. Raj, thank you very much for being on the program tonight, and congratulations to you, of course, with all the work that you've been doing with Odisha FC.
That's a pleasure, and thank you once again. Thank you very much. Thank you.
That was Raj Athwal, the president of Odisha FC, joining us live on the Playmakers tonight. Moving on, but staying with the ISL in keeping with its landmark 1000th game, joining us now is our football journalist, Ashwati Santosh. Ashwati, thank you for joining us on the program tonight.
Thank you so much for having me, Rahul.
Well, I know you've been following the 1000th game, which concluded just a while back. Chennai and Mumbai City played out a one-all draw. Now, you were quite young, of course, when the ISL began. Now, what do you recall about the inaugural season?
First of all, what I immediately recall is the introduction of a lot of global stars. Like me myself, I'm a Real Madrid fan. So hearing that Roberto Carlos is coming to India was huge. So ISL, what they did right from the right beginning was they started with a lot of global stars like Dimitar Berbatov, Zico, Luis Garcia. So these big names, of course, Indian football doesn't have a lot of fans in India, but European football does have a lot of fans in India. So they made the right choices by bringing in a lot of global stars, and promoting the league was huge. Like the promotions were huge. I immediately recall the big names coming to India.
And it took a while for the ISL to be recognized, of course. But I guess it was back in 2019 that it got recognized by the AFC. Was that right?
Yeah, so the initial problem was I League was the first division of Indian football, and I League had a proper promotion and relegation system. But unlike ISL, ISL was a closed league without promotion and relegation. So it took a while to transform from just being a franchise league to being the first division football league of India. So in 2019, AFC and FIFA recognized ISL as the first division, and they demoted I League as the second division. And fast forward to last season, which is 2023-24 season, the 10th season of the Indian Super League. So the first ever promotion from I League to ISL, which was Punjab FC. Now this year we have Mohammedan joining from I League, and soon enough I think they will also introduce demotion into the league. So it's no longer a closed league.
Yeah, the relegation battles will make things a lot more interesting. And of course, the ISL has been around for quite a while now. The 1000th game just played out just a short while back. I'm quite sure that you've got quite a few records that you'd like to share with our viewers tonight.
Of course, records as in there is a lot. Well, let's start with the league game tally itself. So in the first season, we had just around 59 games, and this season it's just match week 8, and we have already played 48 games, which means the for 1001st game is now happening as we speak. So that is the biggest improvement or record I would say. But there are a lot of like, let's say, goals, or like, let's start with ATK. So in the first season, ATK was the first ever champions, and they dominated, like, the next 4 to 5 years. They have won 3 titles, which is the by far the most by any single team. That's the biggest record. Then, since we are talking about success, let's also talk about red cards and yellow cards. Back in 2015, a game between Northeast United and Chennai FC saw around 12 yellow cards and one red card, which was 13. But like, the chaos cannot wait. So last year, Mohan Bagan and Mumbai City played out a game which saw around 14 cards in total, and 7 players being sent off using red cards. So that is another very interesting record to say. Then I think, talking about records, we should also mention FC Goa beating Mumbai City by a big margin of 7-0. That was the biggest ever margin of history in ISL. And it has also happened to be the 100th game in ISL history. And funny enough, after that game, FC Goa never managed to beat Mumbai City after that. So that was another record. Then, talking about record, we should also mention bad records, right? So Kerala Blasters became the first team to reach 3 finals without winning any of the 3 games. So that is another record.
Yeah, and if there's a quiz around the corner on football and ISL, chances are that you will win that hands down, Ashwati. That's quite a lot of facts that you just rattled off for our viewers. And I do understand that you're a big fan of Indian football yourself. You've been reporting on football for quite a while. What, according to you, are some of the landmark moments of the ISL that you might recall?
To be fair, I will say that introducing promotion to the Indian Super League is one of the biggest moments, because from becoming a franchise league to introducing promotion was, one step to being an open league. And as an Indian football fan, having an Indian as the top scorer of Indian Super League is one of the proudest moments we can ever have. Our own, like, now retired Indian captain Sunil Chhetri overtook Bartholomew Ogbache, and I think he has 68 goals, which was just last moment. So having an Indian top scorer is obviously one of the biggest moments ever, as an Indian football fan, as an Indian Super League fan.
Well, Ashwati, thank you for joining us on the program tonight and sharing all of those insights with our viewers.
Thank you so much, Rahul.
That was Ashwati Santosh, our Kerala based journalist, joining us live on the Playmakers tonight. Moving on to news from Q Sports, Pankaj Advani has clinched his 18th World Billiards title at the 2024 IBSF 150 Up Billiards Championships. He claimed the title with a 4-2 victory against Robert Hall of England in the final in Doha, Qatar on Saturday. This was his seventh successive title at the 150 up format of the IBSF Billiards Championship. Pankaj started the game in dominating fashion and won the first 3 frames of the match. Thereafter, Hall won 2 consecutive frames to keep his hopes alive in the final. The 39-year-old Indian then responded in the 6th frame, winning it comfortably with a margin of 152 to 46 to pocket the title. With this, Advani now is a 28-time International Billiards and Snooker Federation World Champion with 18 billiards titles, 1 World Team Billiards title, and 9 titles across various snooker competitions. Truly a legend. News now from athletics, and 2-time Olympic medalist Neeraj Chopra now has a new coach. On Saturday, Chopra announced the new partnership with javelin legend Jan Zelenzi and will begin training with him for the upcoming 2025 season. Zelenzi is a 3-time Olympic and world champion and the current world record holder as well. The former athlete from the Czech Republic is an idol of Neeraj Chopra, and the Indian has expressed his admiration for Zelenzi in the past as well. News from badminton now, and Kiran George's impressive run at the 2024 Korea Masters ended in the semi-finals with a straight game loss to reigning world champion Kunavut Vitsaran of Thailand. Kiran George was beaten in straight games 12-21 and 20-22. Despite the semi-final loss, the 24-year-old Indian had an impressive run in the tournament, beating two higher-ranked players and picking up valuable ranking points along the way. Moving on to hockey now, and Indian stars Harmanpreet Singh and PR Srijesh have been named Player of the Year and Best Goalkeeper of the Year at the 2023-24 FIH Hockey Awards. Both were instrumental in India's bronze medal victory at the 2024 Paris Olympics. The awards, which celebrates exceptional hockey talents from across the world, was determined by a panel of experts, national associations, fans, and the media. Up next, we've got the play of the day. And finally, our play of the day comes from Q Sports, with Pankaj Advani winning the 2024 IBSF Billiards 150 Up crown on Saturday, and for beating England's Robert Hall in the final with a 4-2 scoreline. Pankaj Advani, pocketing his 18th Billiards World Title, is our play of the day. And that's all that I have for you on the Playmakers today. Do subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified every time we bring you the news live on YouTube. My name's Rahul Kargal. Thanks for watching the Playmakers tonight. Until next time, goodbye and good luck.